I remember the first night he called it love. His fists met my skin like a storm, fierce and relentless. He told me he loved me in the same breath that knocked the wind out of me. My body, marked by bruises, screamed at me to run, but my mind was already caged. He didn't need chains to keep me confined. His words, his fists, and the glint of a gun were enough. Each bruise became a reminder of the twisted love he gave, a love that left me feeling more isolated from the world outside. He never understood, or maybe he did, that his way of showing love only brought me pain. He took everything from me, my family, my friends, my dreams, and left me with nothing but fear. I was no longer the girl I once was. Instead, I was his puppet, his pet, trained to respond to his every whim and terrified of what would happen if I didn't. It wasn't always this way. The man I married wasn't the monster who now tormented me. Once he was gentle and kind, a man I got was my soulmate. We met by chance and I, a young woman full of romantic ideals, thought it was destiny. It all started so simply. I was at a cafe, lost in a book, when he approached me. He was charming, the kind of man who seemed too good to be true. We talked, and before I knew it, he had slipped into my life. At first, I couldn't believe my luck. Here was this handsome, kind man who listened to me, who shared his own pain and vulnerabilities with me. He told me about his troubled past, about how people had hurt him. He trusted me with his darkest secrets, and I felt special. I thought I was the one who could heal him, the one who could make his pain go away. We became friends, first spending hours talking about everything and nothing. It wasn't long before those late-night conversations turned into something more. He told me he loved me, and I believed him. I fell hard, swept up in the fantasy of it all. He made me feel like the luckiest girl in the world, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. When he asked me to marry him, I didn't hesitate. My parents, though worried, gave in after a few disagreements, and I left my home and my family to build a life with him. I was young, in love, and blind to the warnings everyone else seemed to see. I thought we were going to live the perfect life, a life full of love and happiness. The first year was exactly that, a dream. We were happy, or at least, I thought we were. I didn't notice the small changes at first. It started with little things. He didn't like me going out with friends, he worried about me working too hard, he wanted me to quit my job. He said it was because he cared about me, and I believed him. After all, wasn't love about sacrifice? I thought he just wanted to take care of me. So, I quit my job. I let go of the career I had worked so hard to build, because he told me I didn't need it. He would take care of everything. And he did at first. I didn't realize then that this was the beginning of my isolation. Over time he became someone I didn't recognize. He started to change, becoming more irritable, more controlling. At first, he blamed it on work, saying he was stressed. I tried to comfort him, to be there for him just like I had always been. I loved him, and I got that if I loved him enough, he would go back to being the man I married. But love wasn't enough. The man I once knew was gone, replaced by someone cold and cruel. He started to get angry over small things, if dinner wasn't ready on time, if I spoke too loudly, if I asked him too many questions. The first time he hit me, I was in shock. He apologized immediately, said it would never happen again, that he was just tired. I wanted to believe him, so I did. But it didn't stop. The outbursts became more frequent, the apologies fewer. Every time he hurt me, he told me it was because he loved me. He said he wanted me to love him more, and this was the only way. I was too afraid to argue. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, he would pull out his gun, or hold a knife to my throat, and I would fall silent. The days blurred together. I was trapped in our house, cut off from the world. He had isolated me completely. I wasn't allowed to contact my family or friends, and I didn't dare disobey him. I was too scared. I was his prisoner, bound not by chains but by fear. I dreamed of escaping, of finding a way out, but every time I tried to muster the courage, he would find a way to pull me back in. After every beating, after every night of terror, he would hold me in his arms and tell me he loved me. He would kiss my bruises and say that he was only doing this to make me stronger, to make our love stronger. And every time, I believed him a little less. One day, after months of planning, I finally found my chance. He had left his phone at home, something he rarely did. I called the police, my hands shaking as I dialed the number. I was terrified he would come back and catch me, but I knew this was my only chance. When the police arrived, they took me away, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I was free. My parents were waiting for me when I arrived at the police station. I thought they would be angry with me, that they would blame me for marrying him for not listening to their warnings. But they didn't. They held me close and told me that everything was going to be okay. I spent weeks in a rehabilitation center, recovering both physically and mentally. The nightmares didn't go away, but I was safe, and that was all that mattered. I thought I had finally escaped him, that I could start over, but I was wrong. He followed me, begging me to come back, saying that he had changed, that he loved me. When I refused, he grew desperate. One night, he found me. He stood outside my window holding the same gun he had always used to threaten me. This time, he didn't point it at me. He pulled the trigger. I survived, but barely. He was arrested, finally put behind bars, but the scars he left on me would never fade. Years later, as I sit here, reflecting on everything that happened, I realize how wrong I was. The love I had with him wasn't love at all. It was control, manipulation, and fear. Real love isn't about power or dominance. It's about respect, understanding, and mutual care. I know that now. The young girl I once was, the girl who believed in fairy tales and romantic fantasies, is gone. In her place is a woman who understands the truth about love. It's not about grand gestures or passionate declarations. It's about the quiet moments of kindness, the gentle words of encouragement, the unwavering support of someone who truly cares for you. That's what I have now. That's what I've found in the years since I escaped him. Real love, not the twisted version he tried to give me. And that, more than anything, is what saved me.